lot to dig into, big topic, but we're going to try and cover as much ground as we can. And since we're a small group, let's make it as interactive as we can as well. So please feel free to post your questions in the chat. And Roxanne, if you want to maybe pause, I'll check back with you and we kind of take Q&A as we go along, and then we'll be sure to reserve some Q&A time at the end as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being with us. I'm going to do a quick intro. We're very happy to have you, Trevor.
Okay.
18 years of experience in the field of executive search, recruiting, staffing, and coaching. We're happy today to have you, and looking forward to your presentation on salary negotiations. Thank you for being here.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to go, let's see, do screen share. Would you like to, so you've got a copy of the deck. Would you like to, do you need to make me host to walk through it, or are you able to put it up and control the slides?
I'm not able to share the screen. Are you able to
See if I can do a share.
see if you could do it on your end?
Okay.
Right. We can see it. Fantastic.
Okay, now let me put it in slide view. All right. There we go. Okay. So the topic, of course, I'm sure where we're going to want to spend a lot of time is on career-related negotiations. But let me start by saying that everything we're going to talk about here today applies to every single industry, whether you are looking for your next career move in the for-profit sector, the not-for-profit sector, the public sector, academia, startup, you name it. The principles of negotiation and at a broader level, the principles of how do you make an ask, right? That's a big part of kind of the context of this presentation here is how do I make an ask? And of course, realizing that a lot of the ask that most of us are probably thinking about is the ask around salary and compensation. So we'll drill down into more details around that. But as Roxanne mentioned, my name is Trevor Blair. I run an executive search firm here in San Diego. And we work primarily with nonprofit organizations and public agencies, but we do have some corporate clients as well. Most of our coaching clients are actually corporate clients. And it's important to know that, again, everything we're talking about here today applies equally in our experience across all those different sectors. We're going to start by kind of setting the stage and talking about the mindset of a successful negotiator. If you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to be successful going into any negotiation, whether it's on salary, whether it's on scope, whether it's even something, a negotiation that is not career related at all. But I wanted to share some bigger picture things with you to try and take some of the pressure off, right? Because we get really worked up when we have to make a big ask, when we have to negotiate. And if we take a step back and think through a few things, I think that helps lower the temperature a little bit and take some of the pressure off. And for most of us, less pressure means better performance because we're more calm and relaxed and we can kind of, be our more authentic selves. Firstly, let me say that this is really hard stuff, and it's not something that we ever really get a chance to get good at because it's not a skill we're using. It's not a muscle we're flexing often, right? You will probably only go through salary negotiations a handful of times, maybe a dozen or so across your entire career. And so it's not like this is something that you're doing weekly and you should expect yourself to get good at. So first and foremost, please take some pressure off yourself and don't expect this to feel natural. Don't expect this to be easy. Don't expect yourself to knock it out of the park the first time out, right? Your first negotiation, even when you do all the other things we're going to talk about in slides 3 and 4, you're probably going to be nervous. You may flub it a little bit, and that's okay. We are all human. But remember that the big things in life, the really important things, the things that are going to be transformative for your personal life, for your career, for your community, there's always going to be an ask involved, most likely. Rarely ever do we achieve something big in our career solely on our own. It's usually because we have asked for assistance, we have asked for that opportunity, we have asked for ideas. And so this is something we need to get used to, right? Is being comfortable making big asks when it's important, when the issue really matters, and especially when it comes to our own career path. Keep in mind that you don't ask, you don't get, right? And so the only person watching out for your career is you. Now, we like to think that if we're in a large, sophisticated organization, that there is a very capable talent development team that's watching over me. And if I just do my job and I'm a good performer, they're going to be looking out for me and they're going to make sure that they're putting together a really robust career pathway for me through this organization. That does not exist. Even organizations that have the best intentions around talent management and making sure that they are looking out for your career, the only person who is really in charge of looking out for your career is you. And so this is something that you have to take ownership of. You have to really be in the driver's seat. And when you think about it, you are in your current position with an organization because you are generating value for that organization, right? So you fill a role because you generate something that ultimately produces economic value for the org. If they take a risk and they move you into another position that you have not done before, or move you into a position that is at, a grade or two above where you are, there's a big risk there, right? That you may or may not be able to step up and perform in that new position. Meanwhile, you have vacated your role as a moneymaker for them in your current position. And so just be aware that there's an inherent bias in organizations to keep you in your current position if you are a high performer, because you are performing for them in that organization. And so that's why it comes down to you to really be very proactive and advocate for yourself, take control of your own career, make those asks, be proactive, ask for more responsibility, ask for a broader scope of role, ask for more compensation if you feel that you're falling behind market and that your comp package is not in line with the value that you deliver. Any questions thus far before we kind of get into a few tactics here? Quick check-in at an early stage of the talk.
There was a question, when is the best time for job seekers to bring up salary? In a job interview, never, right?
In a job interview. So let me share our strategy on this, and we're a little bit different.
Okay.
So the old school kind of old time recruiter, right? Some folks have been doing this a very long time and are kind of stuck in the ways of the past. Their mantra is, well, you don't talk about salary until you're at the final interview, because it's like dating, right? And so talking about salary on your first interview is the same thing as going on a date and asking the person across the table from you, well, how many kids do you want to have? It's like, whoa, we're not there yet, right? We just met each other. I think that's completely backwards, right? Because if you're in an interview process and you haven't talked about salary, that is a huge elephant in the room that everyone's dancing around and nobody's talking about, right? And it's hanging over the entire process, making it less comfortable for you, less comfortable for them. And you're wondering, I'm putting all this time into this interview process, and I don't even know if they're going to be able to offer me what I need to make, right? For that reason, our firm, before we even meet candidates for the first time on the phone, we're having that first phone conversation, we talk about their salary requirements and compensation. And we are very upfront with what the range is for this role. And we ask them, how does that stack up with where you're currently at? And is that going to be enough for you to make a move? If not, let's talk about how far off we are on that number. If so, we don't need to pin them down on a number. We just need to know that this client's salary range is within the candidate's target range, and that is enough to then continue on with the process. And once you both know you're at least in the same ballpark, it is amazing how much pressure that takes off of you as a candidate and also from the interviewer standpoint, right? Because now both sides know if this interview process goes well and we get to the end, we're going to be able to ink an agreement pretty quickly and easily. One of the things I'm going to talk about later on the slide, but I'll go ahead and mention it now because it's relevant to this question. Nobody likes to haggle. Nobody likes to haggle over money, and nobody likes to haggle over themselves, especially when there's a dollar value attached to themselves, right? And I don't mean haggling in the market because you're trying to find a great deal on that one-off piece of art, right? Haggling over yourself and being forced to put a dollar value to your potential contributions to an organization is not comfortable for anybody. And so if you can get to the final round interview and you know that your target range is within the budgeted range for this position, you're going to be able to close the deal pretty quickly. And then you haven't burned up all this goodwill when you start on the first day of your job, right? Because let's say you don't talk about comp until the end. You get to that fifth interview and all of a sudden you realize you're $20,000 apart and you've got to do this really contentious negotiation and dance to try and get to a number that you can live with and they live with. You feel like you've been nickeled and dimed. They feel like they've been taken to the mat. Neither party feels good when you're going into this new relationship, i.e. your first day of work. And so you've burned up a lot of goodwill and sort of that excitement and that positive energy of starting a new job, that's all been sort of stolen from you because nobody talked about compensation until the very end. So as a candidate, it is always appropriate in the very beginning to ask, and of course, expressing interest in the position. Now, you don't want to take the call from a recruiter and say, yeah, how much does it pay? Right? I mean, that's just too abrasive. You want to hear them out, understand the role, right? Because you need to fully understand the role before you fully understand what kind of salary is it going to take for me to take a position like that, right? Because some roles, you may need an extra 10 or 20K if you're going to take that job because of the level of difficulty or because it's important work, but not the fun work, so to speak. So make sure you at least have a basic understanding of what the position is. And if they don't offer information on what the comp is, and let me take a step back, more and more often, and what we are really pushing our clients to do is to post the salary range, put it right there at the top of the position description. So that, I think the world is moving more towards that practice anyway. So hopefully you'll start to see when you're looking at position descriptions, it's somewhere on that first page. We put it right there on page 1. Some organizations put it farther down, but more and more organizations are posting salary ranges. Also, because LinkedIn and a lot of the job boards now, if you don't put a range on there, some of them won't actually let you even post your job. Or if you don't put a range, they will post one for you. They will make an assumption based on their algorithm of what they think the market is, and they will say this position probably pays between X and Y. And sometimes they are wildly off. So that's why it really behooves employers to start being very transparent up front with salary and compensation packages. That said, for all of those reasons, back to your question, it is entirely appropriate on that first call to say, and do you know what the salary range for this position might be? Or is there a budget for this position yet? Totally appropriate to ask that question. And if you're far off, they have shared information with you. Now it's only fair that you share information with them. If they are far off, be upfront and let them know that, you know what, I'm already making X. That's quite a bit of a gap. Do you know what kind of flexibility they might have? And you can literally use that script that is totally professional and appropriate. And it's being open and authentic about what you really need, because you don't want to waste your time. And as a courtesy, you don't want to waste their time too, if you know they're never going to be able to pay you what you need to make. So with that, we're going to move into some tactics, and we're going to come back to this too a little bit later in the presentation because it's a great question. So actually, the notes are ahead of the slide here or behind the slide. So what do you do when so you've got the mindset, we talked about that. What do you actually do now going into going into a negotiation or an ask, right? Number one is prepare. Prepare. Do your homework. If you do your homework, you're going to be much more relaxed, cool, calm, collected. And if you're relaxed, you're going to perform better. It's just like anything else, right? Practice improves your mindset, which improves your performance. So do your homework. Look at salary. You can go on Glassdoor. There are a ton of different tools online. They're totally free. So you can get an idea of what a position's market salary range is in your area and in your geographic area and in your field. Now that said, every individual is unique, right? So there's two parts of this equation. There's one, what's the market rate for this position? But two, what do you really need and want to make? And so we're going to talk a little bit later on that it's not all about the money, but at the same time, San Diego is an expensive place to live. We all have different kind of financial baselines in terms of family size and housing and commute and all that sort of stuff. So if you really, really love the role, but you are far above that comp range, I'm not going to say don't pursue that position, but just be even more transparent and upfront and really reiterate your enthusiasm for the position, because there is a chance if the organization loves you and this is a match made in heaven, they will find the money. They will make it happen, provided they do not have any constraints from funding sources or a really thin budget. Smart organizations will find a way to make it happen for A players. And another aside here, but we always tell our clients, just so you know from the candidate's perspective, an organization is much, much better off hiring an A player, even if they're only able to keep them for 2 to 3 years, than a B player who they're going to hang on to for 5 to 10 years. Because an A player is going to come in and they are going to have real impact. They are going to have transformative change. They are going to help that organization get to the next level. A B player is going to come in and at best, they're maybe going to maintain the status quo, right? And no organization wants to track sideways through time, right? So as a hiring manager, you are much better off hiring that A player, knowing that even if in 2 to 3 years, they're going to need to leave and spread their wings and go on to something even bigger and better, they will have taken you as an organization to a better place than that B player who's just craving stability and they're going to be there forever. And the challenging thing for an employer is that a B player who's just okay is really hard to get rid of, because they're not underperforming enough that it's painful for you to get rid of them, but they're definitely not helping you grow and develop as an organization. You're sort of stuck in this dead zone. So keep that in mind as a candidate too, that if you are an A player, there's a position that is below your targeted range, but you really feel compelled by the work, by the mission, by the organization, and you know it's a really good stepping stone or a good move for you either personally or professionally, and you really want this role, don't discount it just because you've got a gap in the salary range. Be upfront, talk with them, work on it, see if there's a creative way that you two can make this happen. And we'll talk about some other creative things as well, but we've got a whole slide called It's Not All About the Money, and we'll talk about that later. So prepare, 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 do your research, think through some scenario planning. So even go so far as to role play, especially if you're doing a negotiation for, say, internally with your current employer. Do some role playing with a friend or family member. Try and put yourself in the other person's shoes, and say your boss's shoes or the hiring manager's shoes, right? Where are they at? How are they coming into this negotiation? What is their mindset? Because at the end of the day, remember, you're negotiating with another human being, and they too have thoughts and feelings and insecurities and all that sort of stuff too, even if they're a CEO of a Fortune 5 organization, right? So try and understand, the more you can understand the mindset of the person to whom you're making the ask, the better you will be able to tailor your delivery and your strategy. So really try and kind of take a human-centered approach to the whole thing, right? You're not negotiating against the big bad corporate empire. You're negotiating with a human being, and they may or may not have real constraints on what they can offer you. But just be upfront and acknowledge that as well. And that will help you think through your strategy a little bit more. Also think through what's going to increase my likelihood for success, right? When and where do I make my ask? Is this something that I can go out to go to coffee with my boss and make the ask there? If so, I think that's a better option. Right? Anytime you can get out of a very formal, stilted, contentious environment, right? Environment drives behavior. And so if you are sitting across a conference table with someone negotiating about your package, that's a pretty contentious setup right there. I mean, think about that physical setup for a minute. You're on this side, conference table is in the middle, they're over here. It's like you've got two armies with the DMZ in the middle and you're lobbing artillery back and forth, right? Like offer, counter offer, boom, 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 boom. That setup is not necessarily going to bring out the best in either person, right? A better setup would be get out of the office where you can have confidentiality and privacy, go to a coffee shop, a neutral third-party location. And also anytime you have food or drink in front of you when you're talking with another person, it changes from an interview or a negotiation to a conversation, right? I mean, that's why for thousands of years, people have talked about breaking bread, right? That's why whenever somebody comes over, the first thing you ask is, can I offer you a drink, right? Because there's a coming together, even if you're just sitting down over a glass of water, right? And so sitting down together to have a conversation about your contribution to the organization and what a compensation package should look like for that conversation held over lunch or over coffee is very different than having to go into HR and sit across the desk from somebody and plead your case, right? It takes it almost like out of the courtroom and into happy hour. I mean, I don't know, that's a bit extreme, but think about the environment, think about where you're going to be most comfortable, where are they going to be most comfortable. That's probably going to engender the best conversation, and the best conversation is going to lead to the best outcome. The other thing is, we've all heard about WIFM, right? WIFM, what's in it for me? Going back to the earlier comment about put yourself in the other person's mindset. What are their budget constraints? Is this an organization that is flush with cash, or are they trying to cut back? Right? Because if they're trying to cut back, whoever you're negotiating with is probably going to be under some real pressure. And so you're going to have to work extra hard and come up with some extra creative ways to help them justify that increase or even bringing you on in the first place. But think about, how can I make this a win for them? If I'm negotiating a bigger comp package, will I also commit to taking on some other responsibilities and maybe taking that off of their plate? Or will I help them knock some new initiative out of the park that they've had on their to-do list for a long time? So if you can pair your comp increase with a win or wins for them, the other person you're negotiating with, or for them, the organization, much better chance of success. It also shows that you're thinking as a team player, right? That you are trying to create a package that helps you do your best work, and a package that helps the organization as well. And so again, having a very kind of team-based mindset when you come into this. So don't forget what's in it for me, meaning, or what's in it for them, WIFT, I guess it should be the acronym there. And finally, plan B. Never walk away empty-handed, right? You don't want to go in, make the ask, and they say no, and you're like, okay, I'll try again next year, right? I mean, that also is very disempowering for you, and it makes you look very amateurish, right? Always ask for something, even if it's just a commitment to have the conversation again in 6 months. That itself is a small win, but always try and get something so that A, you don't, again, walk away empty-handed feeling rejected and dejected, and B, so that they know, okay, this is on my radar, I'm gonna have to start to get creative about rewarding this person more if there's somebody that I want to keep on my team. Again, never walk away empty-handed because you'll feel terrible. But again, going back to the whole mindset thing is, with making a big ask, what's the worst they could say? The worst. There's two, actually. One is no. And then, okay, well, then you fall back on your plan B and see what else you might be able to salvage out of this. Or it's ignored, in which case you just keep coming back and you're persistent. Or if you're ignored, it's not no, but just now is not the right time. And so that's what I encourage people to think of. If you get a no, think creatively about what else can you get at the current time, and how do I change that no to a yes? And no is not forever, right? No is just not at this point in time. So don't stop at no. Okay, so I kind of just already, spoiler alert there for the first one, but be bold, right? Advocate for yourself. Nobody owns your career but you. Nobody's really looking out for your career pathway but yourself. Be bold, be persistent, realize that sometimes you'll have to come back again and again, and maybe you'll have to, I don't want to say plead your case, but a lot of times this is not a one and done, one coffee conversation, right? I mean, you want to set the stage, have the conversation, help them kind of warm up to the idea, come back again with some new data, come back again after they've had some time to process, and then try and sort of see if we can stitch something together here. So don't expect that this is a one-off thing, right? Like I have an ask, I do my homework, I make my ask, we're done, right? The bigger the issue, the bigger the more it matters, the more time it's going to take, the more conversations it might take. So be prepared for a multi-part process. And that's okay too. While that seems frustrating to go, well, it's going to eat up a lot of my time, but it also gives you more time to think, prepare, and digest what just happened between each stage. Because you don't want to be rushed as well, right? I mean, if you're rushed, you may take an offer that's actually, or a package that's lower than what you might have gotten had you stuck with it and not rushed it and had more of a multi-part gradual conversation. Again, be persistent. Again, no doesn't have to mean no. It maybe just means no, not right now. And the more high-powered the person you're meeting with, the harder it's going to be to get on their schedule, right? So be patient. It may take time before you can start setting up this conversation or this series of conversations. And that's okay too, right? Be patient. It may take time, but that also just gives you more time to prepare. And then again, finally, be sympathetic. Put yourself in their shoes. Acknowledge that, if you are nervous and uncomfortable, they may very well be too. And I can tell you that even for executives that have large teams, they're still not doing this that often either. And every case is so unique. So even though they may not be showing it on the outside, they're probably a little bit nervous on the inside themselves as well. And so if you sense that, the best way to put people at ease and deflate any situation is a self-deprecating sense of humor, or just humor in general, right? I mean, if you can have a very small, quick laugh, even if it's not like a laugh out loud kind of laugh, but just sort of one of those intellectual kind of, oh, haha, that can really help put both sides at ease too. So again, you're human, they're human. This is two people coming together. Try not to get too caught up in the seriousness of it. I mean, it is serious stuff, but you don't want to perform and act like a robot that's just firing out data points, right? Okay, planning and preparing. I'm going to move a little bit quickly through this because we already touched on a lot of this stuff. But remember, I mentioned it earlier, the decision to hire someone, the decision to promote someone, the decision to give somebody a raise, all comes down to economics. People are expensive. It is expensive to employ you. And keep in mind that your cost to a company is not just your salary, because you have benefits. There's payroll taxes. The company has to pay for office space or a computer or your Zoom account or whatever, right? Typically, the total cost to employ a person is around 30-35% of your pay package. So keep that in mind. If you think, oh, well, I'm just going to use really round numbers here. I'm making 100,000 right now, but I generate 200,000 in revenue for the organization. So really they should pay me 150. Well, no, you don't cost 100,000, you cost 135,000. And if you're only generating 150,000, then your net profit to the organization is only 15,000. And then that doesn't even include the time and overhead of managing you. So really, they're probably in the red on you to begin with. So keep in mind that you are expensive to employ and you cost a lot more than just the number you see on your pay stub, right? But use data. I encourage folks to do their homework. Again, there's plenty of salary surveys out there. But keep a log, a career log or a career journal, so you can document where you have been contributing value, big projects you've assisted with, times when you've gone above and beyond. If you can quantify the things you've done in terms of dollar value, in terms of either lowered expenses, increased revenue, efficiency gains, time, those sorts of things, so that when you go sit down, you've got something to back up the ask. And it's not just, I want more money. Why? Because I think I'm worth more. It becomes, I feel that I've grown with the organization and I'm delivering a lot more value these days, and I've really grown in the position. And I feel like the compensation package is probably more aligned to something like this now, based on everything I've done, such as this, right? Giving the person on the other side of the table some ammunition, because they're probably gonna have to go back and lobby on your behalf for that increase, right? Your direct supervisor has to get that budget approved somewhere. If it's a CEO, they've got to get that, but they've got to justify it to the board, right? So you need to make their job as easy as possible by giving them data points and justification to go back and lobby on your behalf to get you that increase. Again, make their job as easy as possible. It's going to dramatically increase the likelihood of success for you. We talked about scenario planning. We talked about what's in it for me, or what's in it for them, I should say. How can you make it a win-win for them? And the last one is kind of the nuclear option, but BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. And so that's your walk away. Alternative to a negotiated agreement, i.e., if they can't give me the salary I want, or if you're interviewing with an organization, they can't give me the package I want, what's my walkaway number? What's my walkaway package? Where I'm better off not in this position, I'm better off not joining this organization. And so make sure you know what's your floor salary, right? I can't go below X because I just can't live on that. Or I can't go below X because I'm already making Y, right? If you're going to change jobs, unless there's a lot of other reasons, and there may very well be, but you don't want to make a lateral move in terms of compensation if it can be at all avoided. In which case your BATNA would be just to stay in your current position. The other thing to think about is, this is the hard part. If you have you do all this stuff, let's say, and you're really trying to be, really sort of, again, approaching it from a human-centered design standpoint, both, looking at yourself as a human and them as a human. And at the end of the process, you don't feel good about how you've been treated as a human, then maybe you need to look at other alternatives. In which case your BATNA is, I'm walking. Hopefully you'll have a pleasant experience through this whole process, and your commitment and level of engagement will be deepened with the organization because they're going to recognize your value and compensate you for your value. But if it's an awful experience and you're getting shot down at every level and you don't like the way you're being treated, that's a pretty good litmus test of the culture and leadership of that organization. And the way you are treated through the hiring process, the way you are treated through the interview process, the way you are treated through the salary negotiation process is a good indicator of the way the rest of your the arc of your career will look and feel with this organization. And especially in this market, if you're feeling like you're getting beat up and haggled and nickeled and dimed and it doesn't feel good, get out. Life's too short. Which brings us to this. We all only have so many trips around the sun, so to speak, right? You will spend by a factor of a lot, I don't know what it is, but much, much, much more time of your waking hours on this planet with your boss and your colleagues and coworkers than you will with your friends and family and loved ones, right? Because we work for 8 to 10 hours a day, we have a couple hours at home at night, we sleep, we wake up, we do the whole thing over again, right? So it is really important that you enjoy your work and you enjoy the people that you work with, because you're spending a lot more time with those people than you are with your own friends and family. And that's pretty huge. And I don't think enough people take a step back and think about that. Every hour I'm spending at work is an hour I'm not spending with my loved ones. Every hour I'm spending on this project for my organization is another hour I'm not spending on my personal growth projects, whatever I'm working on. And so that's why it's really important that you work for an organization that you believe in and that you feel aligned to the culture. So I'm going to go through the top. Actually, I'm going to flip these. I'm going to go to 4, 3, 2, 1, since we're kind of already on that, and then I'll go back to the other ones. And I intentionally listed these backwards because typically when people think about a job, the first thing they think about is the money, right? Well, what does it pay? And that's natural, right? Because we all got to eat. I mentioned it earlier. San Diego is an expensive place to live. But also the financial piece is the easiest part to evaluate about an opportunity because it's right there in your face, right? It's a hard data point. It's a quantifiable number, right? Boom. It's easy, right? So that's why usually the first thing they look at is the money. And I put that at the top of the list for that reason, but I put it as number 4 because I think it is way overhyped. I think people put too much focus on the money and they forget about numbers 3, 2, and 1. And I'm going to talk about why. Yes, a job needs to meet your financial requirements. I mentioned it earlier, and everyone's requirements differ, right? Based on family size, based on housing costs, based on commute times, based on grad school debt, all those things. We all have a different financial floor. But provided that can be met, the money is actually a lot less important than the other 3, because the other 3 are what dictate your daily experience at work. And the daily experience, going back to so many trips around the sun, do you want to spend more of those trips having a positive daily experience, or do you want to spend those trips in an environment that's not exactly fulfilling? And so the things that really, really matter and why we even go to work in the first place. Okay, number 4, we gotta eat and put a roof over our head. But a fulfilling job is one that challenges you. So your skills and experience are actually being deployed, and you don't feel like I wasted 8 years of schooling on this and I'm not even using it, right? So your skills, experience, and education are being utilized. The mission and the meaning is there for you, both in terms of the work you're doing and the organization you work for. You could very well love your job, but hate the organization. Or vice versa. You love the organization's mission, but your role is making you miserable, right? So you have to have both to be happy at work. But most importantly, it's the people you work with. Because unless you are an extreme introvert who would rather not talk to another human all day long, the biggest factor in shaping your experience in your daily experience at work is the people that you work with. Your clients, your colleagues, the people that you are Zooming with, or the people that you are literally bumping into in the halls, whatever. The people you surround yourself with at work are going to have the largest, they are the largest determinant of your daily experience at work, hence the largest factor in your level of happiness at work. And so keep those 4 things that really matter in mind. And why do we even go to work in the first place? And what determines if I'm having a positive work experience or a not positive work experience? Those are the 4. So stepping away from money and looking at compensation holistically, right? Because a comp package is not just your base salary. There's a lot of other things that go into it. Of course, healthcare, 401k, those sorts of things, but those also still have a monetary value attached to them. Once you feel like you're at a number that you can live off of financially, and you know that the organization is pretty much at the max about what they're able to pay you for this role, if you still have a gap, there's a number of other creative things you can look at that have real economic value. And I will say that some of these on this list actually deliver higher job satisfaction than the money alone, right? Some organizations, including mine, are moving to an unlimited PTO model. And that's pretty radical in the world of HR. It makes a lot of HR people very, very nervous, but I'll give you a number of reasons why it makes a lot of sense. Number 1, tracking and managing vacation plans is a pain. Number 2, all the studies have shown that if staff have unlimited vacation, they actually take less vacation. It takes vacation from a asset with a limited shelf life into a safety valve to be used when you need it, a pressure release valve when you need it. And so we've all experienced this before. If you have 2 weeks of vacation, which America is far behind the curve on minimum vacation amounts, but let's say you have 3 weeks of vacation, right? It is stressful to the staff person to have that vacation, because some organizations have use it or lose it policies. I know that's changing in California, but it used to be you could have a use it or lose it policy. If I don't take my 3 weeks this year, it's gone. Or use it or we pay it out and it doesn't accrue, right? So yeah, you'll get a nice check, but that's still going to be taxed. And the whole point of vacation has now just gone out the window if you're not taking it, right? The other thing is, from the organization's perspective, this unused PTO becomes a huge liability on their balance sheet. There's a real cost to that, both for them and for you. I'll give you an example. One of my team members, she had all this unaccrued vacation time when she left her previous organization to join our firm. They had to pay her out. She paid off her grad school loans with her unused PTO. Great for her, but a sorry situation for both, because that's vacation time she maybe really needed but wasn't able to take. And B, the organization had to write a huge check. So they took a hit to their bottom line. So unlimited PTO is pretty radical still these days. Not many organizations have the guts to use it, but it's very powerful, and it's something you might want to try for, especially if you're in a knowledge-based position. Because if you are being hired as in a professional level position, unlimited PTO, what that says to the candidate is that you are a professional. I trust you. I am hiring you not to produce FaceTime in the office or on screen. I'm hiring you for outcomes. And I trust that you know how and when you work best and that you will get the job done. In our firm, our approach is we have unlimited PTO, and I don't care how or when the work gets done, but I care about three things. I care, one, that our clients are happy. I care, two, that our candidates are happy. And three, I care that we are all accessible and accountable to each other, right? We need to be able to find each other and get back to each other in a relatively reasonable fashion. We all actually travel a fair bit. Some of us have family up and down the coast. There's no reason, especially today, if you're a knowledge worker, that you can't work from Portland as easy as you can from San Diego, right? Now, that said, that only applies to a segment of the economy, right? Because a lot of positions, especially in medicine, are very much tied to place and time, right? If your role requires a shift, then this whole conversation on unlimited PTO gets a little trickier. And I want to fully acknowledge that. But there are still ways to get creative about how leave is used. And also post-pandemic, the world of work has changed. The world of work is not Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 anymore. The world of work has to fit around the world of life and outbreaks and whatnot. And I think that's one of the good things that came out of 2020 was that we realized that sitting down and grinding it out for 8 hours a day is not that does not unleash human potential, right? We all have different peak periods of productivity throughout the day based on who we are. Some of us are night owls, some of us are early risers, some of us are like, we're on fire at midday, right? And so empowering people to work when life allows them to work and when they can work at their best. So, it's not only the when and the where, but the how that work gets done these days. And again, I don't know what the magic solution is so that this can be applied to positions that are highly dependent upon place and time. We may never figure that out, or maybe there's other ways that those folks can enjoy that kind of flexibility. But that flexibility, if you can get that in your comp package, is going to be one of the largest determinants of your happiness at work. Because you will be empowered to fit life around work. You'll be empowered to work when you work at your best, when you're able to enjoy your work the most. The other thing to think about, performance incentives, those are becoming more and more common. If they can't meet you on your base, ask them if they can apply a performance incentive if you really knock it out of the park. Takes compensation and turns it from a fixed cost into a variable cost. So that takes some of the burden off of your employer. We talked about flexible work and hybrid arrangements. The other thing we've been seeing candidates negotiate successfully for is a professional development budget. If you can't pay me that extra $5 in base salary, give me a $5K professional development budget that I get to use each year for whatever I want to use it for. I can use it to go to conferences. I can use it for certificates. I can use it if I need to upgrade my technology. And if you give a candidate a professional development budget, you're not paying payroll taxes and all that stuff on top of it. So from the employer's perspective, they save money. From your perspective, it actually helps accelerate your professional and personal development, and they don't have to justify increasing their payroll if they aren't able to do so. So with that, here's our team, here's our contact info. Happy to, I know that went a little bit longer, Roxy, than we had anticipated. We got a little bit of a late start, but would love to take Q&A.
Great.
In fact, I will go ahead and you don't need to look at that at all.
Actually, there was a question from somebody regarding the fear of salary negotiations. You kind of covered that. What would you recommend? It is a difficult conversation to have, but what recommendations do you have for overcoming that fear? Like, just you have to have the right
I go back
mindset.
to slide one, right? I mean, we spent the first 10 minutes talking about the mindset and how to, like I said, take the pressure off
Mhm.
and think it through, right? You're a human, they're a human. They're probably not super comfortable about this either. The more you prepare, the more relaxed you're going to be.
Got
The
it.
more you can put yourself and relate to the other person on the other side of the table. That's why I said, use what's in it for them. Try and put yourself in their shoes. That will help you relax and better understand them. The better you understand them, the less stressful this is going to be. So yeah, it's all there on the first slide. So that is really preparation, approaching it from the right mindset, being realistic about it,
Mhm.
taking the pressure off yourself, that don't expect yourself to knock it out of the park on the first go. This stuff's uncomfortable for everybody and we're all in it together. So let's make the most of it.
Great. We have a question from John. He's asking, do you hear about change of control agreements?
Change of control agreements. You have to tell me more about what that means.
Mhm. John, are you open? John, are you there? He put it in the chat. I'm not sure.
I've never heard that term before.
No, you haven't heard of that term. Okay. I'm just wondering if he'll respond out loud in the group. But that was his question. So
Well, we're at
change of control agreements.
6 minutes to 12. So, totally fine if there aren't any more questions.
The other question I have, oh, this is a question, everything you talked about. So you know how employers are starting to increase salaries to retain individuals? It's the same, everything you've talked about is the same approach. Is that correct? For retaining, because like there's salary negotiations when you're getting a job offer, but there's also salary negotiations for staying instead of seeking out other opportunities. Everything applies.
This stuff applies to negotiating with your kids. Again, the strategies are all the same, whether you're talking about money, whether you're talking about, anything at all. So, okay, so to answer your question, that's just a severance package, right?
Okay.
If change of control in a merger, so really it's protecting your employment in the event of a merger and they have layoffs, what's my payout? So yeah, severance is the more commonly used term. And that happens all the time, especially for more senior level positions, very, very common. Usually it's done in terms of months. So 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. So if you're negotiating a package from the ground up and you're a C-level executive, absolutely. See if you can get that in there. And what that does is offsets your opportunity cost, right? Because the higher up the career pyramid you go, the farther it is between positions, right? Because there's just fewer people at the top. And so an average CEO is, it's 6 months between roles for them. And so the severance is to give them some cushion. If there's a merger and my role is eliminated and I know it's going to take me 6 months to find another C-level position, that's what that severance is for, so that to see you through that gap until you find your next position.
Great, thanks. Any other additional questions at this time? Trevor, is it okay if I put your contact information in the chat?
Sure.
For LinkedIn? Okay, so everyone, I've included Trevor's information if you'd like to reach out to him. And definitely want to thank you. I want to thank you for covering the key points with the mindset success for negotiation, talking about the environmental settings and the conversations we have to have, as well as package compensations and the creative points that you mentioned on the non-monetary value. Appreciate your talk today, Trevor. Thanks for being a friend and colleague. It's always a pleasure to have you. If you have any opportunities also, do you at this time in your search firm, and how can individuals connect with any opportunities that you may have at this time?
Yeah, we have 25 active searches going right now. Almost all of those are here in San Diego. We have one in LA. Actually, that one hasn't posted yet, so I guess that was 26. One in LA, one in Central California, but everything else is here in San Diego. So if you go to blairsearchpartners.com, all of our openings on our website, you'll see them on LinkedIn. But yeah, blairsearchpartners.com is probably the most comprehensive listing, and it does change all the time. So
okay, fantastic. Well, we're very happy and thankful that you were here today to inform us on the trends and what's going on. Appreciate your partnership with UC San Diego Division of Extended Studies, and we hope to have you back again soon.
okay, thanks, Roxanne, and I wish you all much success.
Great. Have a wonderful week. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.